about. Trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist. Am I worth anything or just discount? I don't know. I don't know.
That was great sounds of Watts with Outside on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, EZ BlueZ is in the building. EZ BlueZ, you are better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us today on Behind the Brand?
Many people will tell you that breakfast is by far the most important meal of the day. And the reason why is because it is the foundation, the building block of a good life, of starting off correctly. So when you can have breakfast in Vegas, a town that does not sleep, a town that pumps oxygen so you don't get up from the table, you know you have to take those steps to fully nourish your soul. And that is what the music around words can truly be, the nourishment of the soul, the palette in which you can build upon. Digital music has evolved from the likes of Kraftwerk to our next guest from Breakfast in Vegas. I want you to put your hands together, not if you're driving. If you're driving, please keep your hands at 10 and 2. We do not want any accidents. Mentally, put your hands together for the amazing Curtis Austin from Breakfast in Vegas, all the way from Colombia to join us. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a long time.
How you been, man?
I've been good. I've been traveling, been exploring the world. Just everything's been a big whirlwind right now, but it's good. It's good.
Let's go back in time. What made you want to start music?
When I was younger, when I was a kid, my mother had a friend that was like into music, and I like went to a studio, and right on Dixwell Avenue, across the street from Three Brothers Cafe.
Right.
And it was like a studio at one point, and like, and essentially, I went in the studio, and I just always had a fixture for what I wanted it to be, or I wanted to understand music. So that's where it started from. And then from time went on, I just got more interested into it. Fell in love with Neptunes, Timberland, all the greats, and it started from there.
Now, from the studio, did you start off with just like handwritten music, or you just write to the computer programs, just knowing different technology when it comes from that?
No, the first moment that I actually really got into anything with business, it was really a drum machine. My grandmother went out and bought me a drum machine from Guitar Center. It was cool, but I couldn't track music out. It was just live music. And then essentially what ended up happening is I went to Guitar Center again, then bought a computer program. And then from buying the computer program, I upgraded to Reason, and then it just started from there. That's a computer program. And I used to work at Sam Ash, by the way.
Wow.
Nice.
So I was 15 or 14 years old working I was 15 working at Sam Ash over there on, I can't think the area, but it's
near
over there.
Woodbridge.
On Amity. Yeah, it's actually on Amity.
Amity, yeah.
Yeah, I used to work
there too.
And that was my first job. Like, that was my first job. Like, so I used to work there, buy equipment. You know how it goes. I saved my money, buy equipment. I just built the studio from there. And I ended up breaking my bed on purpose so I could move a couch in there. So I could move a big computer desk from Guitar Center into my bedroom. So it's like it's a lot of crazy stuff I did when I first started getting into the music.
That's awesome, man. Any discounts at Sam Ash?
It wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. It was like if there was something being sold and it was cheap, you just buy it. But like, there was no real discounts. If that was the case, I would have had a huge studio. But I didn't.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Easy. I see
Well,
you
no, you
smiling.
could definitely tell there's not huge discounts when the two pieces of equipment that he mentioned were from Guitar Center. You know, you worked in Sam Ash, but you still bought that computer desk at the Guitar Center. You know what I mean? So it shows you where the discounts are. But what I really love about your story, and I really want the listeners here to really understand. I wasn't kidding in the intro when I say you're currently in Colombia right now, and I'm not talking about the district of or the college. You're in, the country of Colombia, but you just mentioned, two roads that are very, New Haven, Hamden, and Woodbridge based. So you
Yeah.
started out here. So for every one of those kids that are skipping school right now when they should be, actually doing what they need to do and they're listening to the show or they're watching us later, it's possible, but how did you get there? Because everybody wants to know the how.
I mean, I would say that the road it's been hard, you know what I mean? But it's once you kind of get established, it starts to move on its own. But like the start came from just doing everything in my power to just want to get in the music industry, want to get better, try to learn. I mean, when everybody was playing basketball or out on dates with girls, I was in the studio. I I worked at Sam Ash, and my business partner, who's still one of my best friends to this day, Broadway. He's that's what I started with. He was making a lot of money in landscaping. He was 16 years old making $1,000 a week. I was like, hey, let's build a studio. And and that's kind of how it all started. And it's like we built the studio in my basement in Hamden. And we didn't really know what we were doing. It was just one of those moments where we're just like, we need somewhere to make music. And we had somebody that we knew around the area. I think one of my father's friends helped build it for us. And I remember it cost us about $1,700, and that's all we had to our name. We put it all into there, and then it was just a room with a rug in my mother's basement, and it slowly started becoming a real studio. So by 16, 17 years old, I'm charging people maybe $15 an hour, $10 an hour. They get a business out of it. It was like that was the first time where I was like, all right, I can make $400 in a day. And at working at Sam Mash, I'm only making that all week. So it's like that was the one moment where I was just like, okay, I see where you can make money in this business. And at that time, it was on the recording side because I still wasn't that great of a producer. So I still wasn't that great of a producer at that time. And there was a lot of people before me. Like it was a guy named Brandon. There's a couple older kids that was a little older than us that was like having really good opportunities. And we were cool with everybody, but we just stayed working, doing our own thing. And then one day, it was a guy from actually North Haven. He lives in New York. He worked for Virgin Records. So this is years after we've been working, busting our behind. And he came to the studio one day, and he was friends with one of our friends. His name is Ellis Stanley, and he was like, "Hey, I want to bring somebody to you. He's an A&R in New York City." He really wasn't an A&R. He was he was like one of the guys in the mailroom type of A&R. But still, we didn't know, you know what I mean? And we played him the music. He was like, "Yo, I really think you guys got something." And then we started going back and forth to New York, back and forth to New York, back and forth to New York. And at that time, now I was working at a group home. So I'm working at a group home, and so I have more flexible time because I'm only working on the weekend. I'm only working part-time. So I'm back and forth to New York, staying at his house. And obviously that we became friends and family. So we at that time in New York, excuse me, there was a lot of industry parties. So studios just have Red Bull or a liquor company sponsor the event, and they'll just have musicians, singers, writers from all over the tri-state area just come. And it was just a thing at that moment. They don't really do that as much now, even before COVID, but that was a thing in New York City. So one day there was a Naughty by Nature, the Naughty by Nature studio. Like it was a big studio because in New York everybody has their own room. So it could be Naughty by Nature here, Epic Records here. Everybody has their room, but the hallway and the group, and the group is the hallway is pretty much where all the groups meet. So they usually would sponsor an event in the hallway, move the couches to the side, and the living room, I guess you would say, not the hallway. And at this particular day, we were there, and it was one of the nicest studios. I forgot the name. It was one of the nicest studios. So we got invited there, and then somebody said, "Oh, go play your beats," because that's what it was. It was a beat off. You just play your music. The next person comes in, play their music, and everybody just shows love. Oh, that's dope. Give me your number, connect. And a lot of times, nothing really came out of it. And you meet artists that were coming up, but they really didn't have the potential to blow up, but they were just cool to work with. And this particular day, we were in the studio with our manager, because he became our manager at the time. His name was Ian Pollard. And he was like, "Yo, play the beats." So we're like, all right. And it's Naughty by Nature, the main producer. And I think, and it was, is it Tretch his name? I can't remember.
Yeah.
And we played a beat, and then he just went quiet. He was like, and I'm like, all right, maybe they don't like it. So we leave after everything. And it was a whole bunch of people after us. Maybe I would say 15, 20 people, artists, producers, writers. And then they were like, so everybody had left. And they were like, "Hey, don't leave yet. We want to talk to you guys." And that's when they started. They were like, "Hey, I don't know how we could work together, but I want to bring you guys under my wing." Boom, boom, boom. So they helped us out in that moment. But there was another gentleman that they were working with at the time, and they were starting up a publishing company, and introduced us to them, and we ended up getting signed to them. And basically, I would say maybe a month later, we were just talking, and the guy was like, "Hey, I really want to work with you guys. I think you got something. Can y'all move to New York next week?" And we're like Monday? He's like, "Yeah." And that's how it started. And mind you, we've already lived in New York because we had an opportunity.
Right.
It was like a group called Nico and I forgot what it was called, Test Drive. And we got opportunity paying us $10,000. That was like our first big opportunity before getting signed. We got paid $10,000 to work for a month exclusively with a specific type of artist, and that's when I knew like this might be something I want to do.
Right.
And that was the start of it. When people start paying you to be in New York, it's like we might as well be out here. There's no reason to be in Connecticut because it's hard to get back and forth, and then people are so quick with it. You can't be in Connecticut because it's a little bit too long from the train to your car to back to their train. So it has to be, you have to live in the city. So I would say about 23 or 24 years old, I just quit my job. I was working for Kohl's, and I just I didn't show up for work. You know what I mean? And that was like the start of it. I said, I'm not gonna work anymore. I'm gonna try to do music full time. And since that day, that's what I've been doing, music. But it's been difficult, obviously, but it's definitely paid off all the struggle.
And I imagine back and forth from CT to NYC just to get that one gig or 2-3 gigs and go back home to Kohl's and then come right back. It had to be a hassle just mentally. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And at that time it was like everything I did at Kohl's was a problem. Like they just hated me. So I was so ready to go. Like I was working as a cashier. They like, "We gotta talk to you in the office." I said, "Oh, what I do? Oh, we seen you listening to music while you were at the cash register." I said, "Okay." Then they put me on the floor, and then my feet hurt. I'm like, "Hey, y'all got me up all day. I can't be standing folding clothes all day." So then they're like, "All right, let me move you to the back." And I didn't know what stock was. If I knew better, I would have stayed right on that floor because stock is no joke.
Mm-hmm.
Like stock is no joke, but I learned a lot, you know what I mean? But, and all those moments and all those jobs, I feel like it makes you appreciate things that you have later on. I feel like if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have been able to be appreciative of the blessings and things that came after that. So that's all a part of the journey, I guess you would say.
Yeah, it's just God giving you signals of where you don't need to be in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Really
true.
is. Easy, BlueZ, see your finger up. Go right ahead. I already know the singles.
Well, no, I I love that you mentioned a publishing deal, because a lot of the people at home that are trying to get into music and different things like that don't understand there are different types of deals you can have and different types of actual creative jobs you can have in the music industry. We're also kind of programmed. You get signed, you play the show, and everyone has the vision of Madison Square Garden or the Los Angeles Hollywood Bowl, and that's what happens. So we really try to explain the other aspects of what there is for music, whether it be sync licensing or a publishing deal. Is there any way you can kind of break down what a publishing deal is for our listening audience at home?
A publishing deal is very simple. It doesn't matter. It's not about music. Anything could be published. Books, exercise routines, video, whatever it may. And when you sign with a publishing company, essentially what they do is they estimate how much money they think you're going to make, and they pay you that up front. And then on back end, they take 25% of your 100% of your money. So you only see 75 or 80%, but they already gave you a ton of money up front so you can live. And you can create the book or the recipe, whatever you like to do. They'll give you money so you could live. That's how when you see writers and they write books and they still are able to pay rent, is because they took money from a publishing deal, which essentially it's like a loan. That's pretty much what it is. But instead of it from a bank, it's from an actual company. That's it.
No,
we go deeper?
No. You already explained it. I thought someone else was about to pick up the ball, but you got around the back. But tell me just with your whole journey and everything, cuz just tell me how did it eventually lead up to just working with some of the artists that we know today, like the Chainsmokers and Tory Lanez and Leanna Lewis and different other people?
Honestly, that had a lot to do with at that moment we were working with a management company, and they were a big management company, so they helped a lot. The management company called the Tim and Danny, so they have Wiz Khalifa, Rihanna, all those albums. They were a part of it, or actually, and their producers produced the record. So they were able to help us a lot and get these records. They would just tell us like, hey, eventually they started managing us, and they were like, hey, we have a Leanna Lewis record, take a shot at it. It's 1 million people taking a shot at it, but if you kill it, it's yours. And that's how it happened. We would just get things. Obviously, we have many things, and those are the little bunch that we got. But like as far as the Tory Lanez, that came later on. Bad Bunny, that came later on. Working with Fuego, that came later on. All the Latin artists, that came later on. So the process of that is just building connections. It's so weird. You'll be surprised what it's hard to explain, but just say you go out to the club tonight and you meet somebody and they're cool. They're like, hey, nice meeting you. Add them on Facebook or Instagram. You don't really know them, but they seem like good people. You'll be surprised how people like that just come back and they have relationships. Oh, I see you do music. I know this person.
It's kind of like what we do on this show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Raised, Elm City made, EZ BlueZ is in the building. We got Curtis Austin of Breakfast in Vegas with us. Go ahead, man. Continue.
Yes, sir. And so essentially, when you meet these people, you show good face. They have no problem introducing you to somebody else because you're trusted, and then they trust you. And then you build these type of relationships and these type of bonds with people. and it comes in play. And I tell people all the time, sometimes it's just best to just do the right thing and just and you know and really look out for people, because I see it all the time in the music industry. Someone they've known since they were like 25 when they first got in the business, and they used to be interns together. Now that person is a CEO of the company, and they it's easier for them to work than some person that they never met. And so building relationships are key. Every single thing came from a relationship that was built 15 or 10 years prior to that moment. All those things happen because you have to understand, in the music industry now, there's dynamics. So you have the artist relationship. And then once you get to the artist, then you have the artist, their label. You have to have a relationship there. And then after the artist puts out a song, you have to have a relationship with Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. So it's a lot of dynamics that go into it. And my current manager now, his name is Lulu Torres. He actually represents he manages Tank and his whole entire R&B money. Wow. Yeah. So it's like I've never met somebody that can go for every meeting, every place. Hey, what's up, Lulu? Hey, what's up? And I'm like, when you know them? Oh, I met them about 15 years ago at our, we were doing this for our event. And I'm like, you'll just be surprised how those relationships come back years later. So imagine if that first impression was awful, then they'll be nice to you, but in the back of their head, they're like, I'm not dealing with the person. No matter how long ago it was, when you leave a bad impression with people. So I say in the music industry, it's just a lot of it came from relationships and good people. You know, I mean, the people that you surround yourself with, whether no matter how you are, they're always gonna look at you. If that person's good and they keep their word, they're gonna treat you the same way because you hang around them. Right. You know what I mean? So be careful who you hang around and who you associate yourself with, because it all comes back at the end of the day as far as to help you in your career.
Always spread the good karma.
Yeah.
Treat people how you want to be treated. Pretty much the stuff that our parents told us from when we were very young. It will definitely stick, especially when it comes to that industry. How competitive is it? Just from where you started to where you are now, when it just comes to giving beats to people and just working with others? Because like when you started, it was like you were working on hip hop beats. Now it's just you got a little spread of everything. You're doing pop, you're doing reggaeton, you're doing a whole bunch of Afro beats. Like you're really expanding your whole brand. Like how competitive is it for you?
To me, I don't think it's very competitive because where I'm at, but I think coming in at different stages is very competitive.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, when you really work on good music, your competition slowly decreases. I feel like if it's a combination of output, really good content, and then actually exposing yourself and branding yourself. If you can do those two things, I feel like you don't really have competition, because so many people are looking to put out music. If anything, I say work with your competition, collaborate with your competition, because at the end of the day, you know, there's 100% of every record. You know what I mean? There's enough to go around. 1% of a hit record is millions. You know what I mean? So it's just like, that's how I like to think about things. When I was younger, I thought about more competition. Now I think about how can we all work? How can we make it happen? You know what I mean? As a team. And obviously you're still in competition, but like you're more in competition with yourself. That's what it comes down to. Like everything is about what you're willing to do to win. As far as the music, I say you have to really work on you have to just work on music that you just know that someone's going to like love it. You know, not just you love it, and put some really good quality into it, put some really good thought into it. Because when somebody hears music, like you were saying earlier, easy, like it's just a feeling. You know, it don't matter if the feeling's from a big producer or a small producer. If you can create that feeling for people, believe me, other people will talk about it. They'll play your music. they'll bring you involved in things just if you can just have that, if you can create that feeling for people. And that's pretty much it.
I want to piggyback off of creating a feeling for people. I was at a music conference about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was actually with Easy Blues at that conference. Who was in, I think, somewhere in Pennsylvania. I forgot where it was, but it was
Harrisburg.
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Millennium Music Conference, and they had this hall of producers. It was crazy. Like when you walked in, it was a whole panel, and this was just from the 70s. People worked with the Beatles, Aretha Franklin, the Bee Gees, and they talked about having that great relationship with the artist. Like you have to have at least a strong bond with that artist and connect with them, so you get to know them, know a little bit about themselves, know a little about a story. And they say the studio is like a cave. You're in there with them until you get that song right to a T. Is that true today?
Yeah, it's different. Everybody works differently. What I find is there's still a lot of artists that like to be in the studio and get the song right.
Right.
Obviously, there's a lot of artists now that can record on their own, so you just send the beat and then you get it back done.
Right.
But like I feel like most of the really, really great music is created face to face from a guitar, from an idea. I think that's how still the best music is still created, personally. But yeah, you have to be locked in with the artist. You have to, as a producer, you're responsible for the music, for the arrangement, for the mood, for the key. You're responsible to make sure the song goes right. Even if you're not singing on the record, you have to still correct the singer or the writer, because sometimes there's a writer and a singer. They're not it's people. You have to make sure every line is done, because one thing done wrong, it literally can ruin the entire song. So as a producer, you're responsible for everything. It's like writers are different. Writers just write the song and they pretty much go home. And then after the song's done, you still have to mix it and make it sound good so people can hear it. So you have to kind of have your hands in every aspect. And people tend to forget that. For real.
Has there always been a little bit of conflict, or you tend to avoid it when it comes to creating?
Sometimes it's conflict, but I think it's, if a person knows you're trying to get the best out of them, they might huff and puff, but they're like, all right. And then after, they're like, oh, I love you for that. Thank you. It's rare you ever really meet somebody and they're like, you just objectively have different type of ideas. It's only happened a couple times in my whole entire life, like maybe twice. And but like for the most part, it's just trying to get better. Everybody's trying to make the best song. So they kind of understand, especially if they respect your opinion. So that's where it kind of comes from. So it's not so much of a conflict.
Where did Breakfast in Vegas come from? Why the name? Did you went to Vegas one day? Did you live there?
So I never even been to Vegas when I came with that name. Never.
Really?
I probably went to Vegas maybe 3 years after making the name Breakfast in Vegas. I was living in Jersey at that time. It was just a weird time in music, especially for me. I felt like we were working with a lot of artists, we're getting paid, but none of the music came out. And I'm like, I want to, like, imagine doing a song, you love it, and then managers get involved, labels get involved, and then the artist gets involved, and then the thing that it doesn't work out. You know what I mean? So it's just like, so you wait 6 months, you get paid, and then you want to tell people, oh, this song's coming out, and it doesn't hit, it doesn't come out, because they dropped the artist. I can't tell you how many times that's happened.
That's so disappointing.
The whole process, release one video, and then the artist might say something, artists are to get upset, and then they drop them, boom. And it's like they never even matter. So it's like, once that happens a couple times, you're like, okay, how can I control music? The DJs control music. So let's step into the DJ world. And mind you, I DJ'd all through high school. Like, if you seen everybody that really know me, I was the quiet kid that just passed out flyers. I was passing out flyers. I would make them at Staples, and I was working with an older DJ. His name was DJ KP. and he used to do all these little events, and I would DJ the events with him. Obviously, I'm the opener DJ, um, and that's kind of how I got my background in DJ. So I was like, hey, let me go back to that because I can control what I play. And at that time, DJs were getting big and coming out with their own music. So I was like, oh, let's do that. And I tried to come up with a name. At first, it was Breakfast in Breakfast in Paris, and I was like, nah, I don't like that. And then Breakfast in Vegas stuck, and I was like looking at photos and videos in Vegas. I was like, oh, this makes sense. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how it happened. And I just sat on the name. I didn't do nothing with it for maybe 2 years, and then I moved to my new apartment in Jersey. I was living in Jersey at that time, and my manager was like, "You got to meet this guy. You got to meet him. He's a big DJ. He's killing it, Latin DJ in New York." I'm like, I don't really want to meet him. I really wasn't in that moment. Like, I really didn't want to be around people. I was kind of just focused on my own thing.
Right.
And I met him, and then he was like, yo, I love your sound. I think we could work together. The only thing is I'm moving to LA tomorrow. And I was like,
wow.
Oh. And I was like, okay, so we're gonna like work again? He was like, yeah, just come to LA. Like it was nothing. And I'd never been to LA before. So I was like, okay, I'll come. Like in my head, I was like, I'm probably not coming. Like, so we started working, sending music, and I think we released one song, and it went crazy on Apple Music to the point Apple Music, they called us. But before even all that happened, we were just working on music, doing pop stuff all over the place. And then one day I was like, hey, I'm living in a Dominican neighborhood. Like it's Dominican, Colombians, a lot of Caribbean, Latinos. I'm like, so I hear kids listening to music. I'm like, who? It's like, mind you, at that time, Future was out, and it was Tony Montana, but it was Tony Montana beat, but it was a Spanish person rapping on it in Spanish. And I was like, so I asked one of the kids, because he's a Dominican kid playing basketball with me. I'm like, who is that? He was like, oh, that's Messia. He's the truth. And I was like, who? I didn't know anything about the Latin world. That's years ago. And then, so I asked my partner, because he's Colombian. I was like, do you know this cat Messia? He was like, yeah. My boy who's DJ at the radio station with me, he's his manager. And I was like, oh. I was like, let's get in the studio. A week later, he's in the studio with us. And it's like, it don't, before I go back to saying, like, it's all about relationships. Like, it's most of the time when you hear a new artist on the radio, you're not in the studio with them the following week because they have so many people bothering them. But like when you know the manager, it's easy. So it's just like those dynamics are so important later on in your career when you're really trying to establish certain things. Knowing the team of somebody, the artists rarely ever make decisions. It's their team that makes the decision. So if you're friends with the team, then you're always able to get to the artist because the artist is just following them because that's what they paid them for, to give them the best career advice, like, oh, you should work with these guys or whatever. And that's kind of how it happened, getting into the Latin sound and really trying to figure out just our sound as Breakfast in Vegas, and that's kind of where it came from.
Wow. Now, the LA scene, how is that different from New York?
New York clubs, like the club scene is different because they're a little bit more strict. Like you can't smoke in the clubs in New York. In LA, you can't smoke in the clubs. In New York, they're very strict on your dress code, especially for women. In LA, it's not the same because the weather's different. So you could come dressed in a dress as a woman, or you can come with sneakers and look fly. They really don't bother you. And guys, as long as you look regular, you're cool. But in New York, it's more so like the guys kind of have to be dressed up decent. And the music is completely different as well. New York is super, it's Caribbean. Most is all Mexican. There's no Caribbean people out there. So they listen to, so you go from listening to bachata, merengue, dembow, reggaeton to listening to reggaeton on the West Coast, but it's banda, it's corridos, it's all these different type of more guitar string type of music. So it's like it's just different as far as like that's concerned. But as far as the music industry, everybody's out in LA. There's really no work that I've seen really happen in New York. All the business happens in New York, but like the music is happening in LA. Like I love Colombia, but I still know LA is the place to really make things happen. It's like one of those places when you're doing what I'm doing, or Miami. It's like Miami or LA. It's like you have to be one of those two places.
Oh, for someone who's been with the industry for so long, what's your take on independent music labels?
I think independent music labels are cool. I just feel like at some point you kind of have to collaborate with someone that or a company that has some funds or has just because God forbid you get a hit and you're not able to fund it is you're doing the song and the artist no justice. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes it's good to give up some things to get help. You know what I mean? Obviously, the groundwork allows you to have more money and involvement, but at some point, you need cash to fund these records. You need cash to do these things and do social media and marketing. So you don't want to have a hit record on your hands because a hit record only has a start date and has an end date. And you have to take advantage of it in between that time. If you don't, people always like the song, but it won't get its recognition like it could have gotten. So I think that independent labels are good is for finding new talent, excuse me, and also taking chances on people that normally maybe a big label wouldn't. So I think everyone has their place in the music industry.
They do, and I do agree. And there's the reason I asked that question because we have a lot of success stories coming from independent musicians. For example, Chance the Rapper, he started off independent, and he has grown phenomenal when it comes to his product and his brand. Even I gotta say, Lil Nas X, he started off, without a record deal and just blew off, with SoundCloud and different artists like that. But easy, I see your finger up. Go right ahead, brother.
Actually, I just wanted to kind of add on to what you were saying. Yeah, Chance the Rapper and Lil Nas X, they hold on to that part of the sentence though. They started out independently. Sooner or later, like Curtis was saying, someone bought in. And that's what got them the extra eyes on them. And we've had the conversation, with our local mayor's office, when they're trying to push a certain artist to play that had a hit in 2006 and they were releasing another song, but you look at the team around them and say, okay, but there's no way the song is going to hit. It's only going to go so far. I mean, we've got amazing local musicians out here. Fat Astronaut just opened up for The Roots. And they are some of the best songwriters I've ever heard in my entire life and some of the best humans I've ever seen. But, I also know that past Vermont, not a lot of people know who Fat Astronaut is. And that's because they don't have the financial capital to get the marketing out correctly. We talk about it a lot on this show with artists, and we really try to drive that point home. Just writing a good song is great. And I don't particularly like Kid Rock as a human being, but he had this one saying that I hold true to. If it's good, they'll hear it. If it's marketed right, you'll buy it. But if it's real, they'll feel it. And that's what it comes down to. Now, you can write some incredibly great music that is real and people can feel to it, but it's only going to go so far. And we did it with Shame Penguin. We released the 4 singles, but we also put marketing packages behind each one of those singles to make sure they were shopped to the right amount of playlists. And we've got the streams that we've got. You still need that good content, but you need the good marketing behind it as well. So I really hope the younger artists are paying attention to what's going on right now, because this is kind of like a masterclass. And thank you so much for being upfront about it. And I'm someone who I will try to stay away from the majors as much as humanly possible, just because coming through it from a different angle. But you've changed my opinion just a little bit, so I wanted to thank you for that.
On WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven, myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Raised, Elm City Made, EZ BlueZ in the building. Curtis, I didn't mean to stop you, but go ahead if you still have that train of thought in mind. Go ahead, man.
No. I agree. I agree with what you're saying. Easy. The only thing I feel like is a misconception that people tell, like you have Russ and you have I forgot his name. You just said it. Chance the Rapper. I you have to understand. A lot of these people, they have money behind them. You know, they have situations behind. It's just, and they don't tell you. You know what I mean? Make it seem like it's independent, but a lot of these situations aren't.
Yeah,
like, and that's just me being completely honest. Like they have machines behind them. It's just not the. Yeah, artists can do deals with labels that are so they can get a little bit of exposure and get their resources for a moment. So technically they're not signed, but technically they're still using the system. You know what I mean? And a lot of artists, they do that or have done that because they want the long-term money or they want the big deals. So it's just like, but they've been doing these little deals in and out. Because you can do a year deal, you can do an album deal, and you can get a little check and you can move on. Well, I mean, what I found out is this, and this is coming from a manager that he loves having these conversations. So I listen. And when they hear people talking about not having a label or forgetting about a label or for radio, they always get into heated comments, either on Clubhouse or on Instagram, wherever it might be. They always get into heated arguments. And the one thing that he always says is, name me a superstar that never came off on radio. And basically his point is like, there's no superstars that ever not hit the radio. Just because that's how it's been created. So at some point, you need major push behind you. I think that's changing now. But it is really good working with companies that already have these bridges already laid, so you can walk across them smoothly when you do have a record. But I'm a strong believer, obviously, in the release music independent. But even myself, I do little deals with labels. I'm not gonna lie to you, I still love doing independent music personally, and then working with really good artists and not so much worrying about the song blowing up today. The reason why I say that is because there's going to be a lot of music within the next 20 years that people are going to go back and listen to and love. When that person was maybe 16 doing the music, now people are loving it when they're almost 30 something years old. And it's just like, I think that or even artists that have been working for a long time and then they finally get a little bit of buzz. Even if it's not the biggest buzz in the world, people are still going to go back and listen to their music, and you're going to gain real fans. I think a hard thing was back in the day that we still don't understand yet. Is like, if there's an artist that you love, you can just go on your phone. You don't have to buy a CD, a record. So imagine if like Elvis Presley or if Stevie Wonder had Spotify back then. It would be the trillions.
It'd be crazy.
You know what I mean? So but there was never really a way to keep going back to records because records break or get scratched or warped, tapes pop or get warped. So music before now had a time period of when either the way it was played was outdated. So if it was a record, you can't use that no more. You're not gonna hook it up with your Bluetooth speakers, you know what I mean? ADAT, whatever it might be. So this is the first time in history, like even MP3s, that still wasn't, you can't count an MP3 play. So it still wasn't worth as much as what a play on Spotify or Apple Music is today. Like we're in a newfound moment. So like, and I always tell people like, you have to think as if you don't know anything. If you talk as if you know everything, you don't know nothing, because no one has experienced what we're experiencing right now. Like, you have to understand, in 100 years, somebody's gonna go back and listen to your song. In 100 years, and they're just gonna type it in, maybe on their glasses or whatever, however it's gonna be then, and then and they're gonna bump it. You know what I mean? So you have to be conscious, like, people are gonna go back and love your music, even if it didn't do well today, tomorrow. And to cut that short, it's just, there was an artist that I think is a Native American artist. I can't remember, but I remember forget. I was in New York in a hotel, and they have PBC on, or PBS. I can't remember the name, and it was like this old guitarist. He was like, and he just put out a whole bunch of music and never did nothing.
Wow.
And like, I think it was like 60 years, 50 years later, they're having big concerts. It's like, and he was homeless. He didn't even know what was going on.
Sugarman.
Sugarman was
so you know
name?
what I'm talking about. And it just showed me, it's just like, think about if the music industry was how it is now, that would never happen. He would go viral. He would know. You know, so that's the difference. We're in a time where people can still go back and enjoy your music, whether it's however they find you in your video content. So even for me, I've been old school in my way of thinking, and I've been in this journey of learning myself. So that's why I always tell people, like, hey, you can't just get stuck in the studio or stuck writing songs. Some people can, because they already have a land bridge to their artists, so they don't have to worry about posting on Instagram or whatever. But for people that don't have that land bridge already, you have to do everything in your power. Everything. It doesn't matter how small something is and how big it is. If one person's seen it, that's one person that didn't see it yesterday, didn't know who you were. So it's like, you have to treat everything like that. And if you think, oh, certain things are too small, essentially what happens is you start losing out on opportunity, because everything, like me, I search for talented artists on SoundCloud, and I'm not looking for views or likes or anything on their Instagram. I just want to know how it sounds, because in my head, I'm like, I know enough people that if it's good, it'll get in the right person's hands. I don't need. Most of the time, most of the artists that are really popular are the worst artists. It's just they're always too much hype. It's too much. They're not talented enough. You know, they might really look good or have a certain type of thing that makes them popular, but 9 times out of 10, those are the least really talented artists. You know what I mean? Most of the talented artists are the ones that aren't on social media. You know, they're working on their craft. So it's like, that's just my perspective on it.
No, like a lot of people had that perspective too. I was talking to somebody recently, and he's like, the most greatest and gifted music is crazy because you'll probably never hear it. And he also said, you don't know who's watching. You can have 1, 2, even like 15 views on whatever platform you're on. Someone's gonna get inspired by your craft. Someone's gonna get touched by your art. Unfortunately, we got about 2 minutes left of this broadcast, Curtis, but I'd love to have you back on again, because I'm learning so much from you. And it's I think we only got so many layers within this great.
Oh yeah, no, this is a 4-hour conversation. Yeah, like, I'm ready to go. Like, but yeah, time constraints.
Exactly. Any social media, anything coming up you want to just tag in, just for Breakfast in Vegas and yourself, and just no coming projects you just want to promote?
Yeah, so right now we're working on some really dope Afro Latin beats. So it's Afro in Spanish and in English, and also working on some Latin tech house right now, which is tech house has always been big, but but with adding the Latin aspect to it, I think is really cool. So we have those 2 projects coming out right now, and obviously just look for a lot of work in Colombia with all these reggaeton artists, champeta artists, like just different stuff that people have never heard before. It's a lot of talented people out here.
Curtis, I definitely appreciate you being a part of this program, man. Thank you. And I got to have you on again.
Yes, sir.
Myself, Prestige, with my partner in crime, Long Island Race, City Made, EZ BlueZ is in the building. Oh, do we mention your social media, Curtis?
No.
Yeah. Can't forget about that.
Breakfast in Vegas. Breakfast, the letter N, Vegas. And that's everything. Twitter, YouTube, that's everything. So obviously I have a Curtis Austin page, but everything goes to Breakfast in Vegas. That's where all the that.
Definitely. All right. I had to mention that part. Behind the brand, myself, Prestige, and EZ BlueZ on WNHHLP 103.5 FM.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just discount?